Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to another monthly month. Oof, okay, we're here. We're at the end of May. We made it. I swear, this has been a strange curveball of a year, and are you all feeling that as well, or is it just me? But anyway, I'm glad to be here with you right now, and I'd love nothing more than to enter the wonderful world of gaming news with things that did occur. Firstly, I want to start by clearing up an error that I made in the last monthly month. I made a joke in that video about Advance Wars Reboot Camp vanishing and was trying to be all zany, but I had no idea that the game is actually not unaccounted for at all. I thought I should clarify that I've since discovered that the game hasn't just disappeared, but has actually been delayed indefinitely, most likely due to what's currently going on in Ukraine. I'm glad that they've made this choice. It's such an awful, indescribably terrible situation in Ukraine right now, and I hope I didn't cause any confusion. I just thought I should clear that up and acknowledge the mistake. Moving on to news from this month, the big standout for me would have to be Nintendo's Indie Direct. I love indie games, I love directs, slap them together, and how could you go wrong? It's like peanut butter and jellyfish. I thought there was a nice variety of games in the Direct, and for me, there were definitely some standouts that caught my eye. Silt, which is an underwater puzzle adventure game, looks really interesting. The art style is very reminiscent of Limbo with its minimal silhouette aesthetic, and I love the sense of space created in the trailer. You've got to love a good tone and atmosphere, and some of those slow camera pulls are they're so delightful. I'm sure playing it with headphones on in a dim room would be super immersive and just a little spoopy. And it's reminded me that I really want to go scuba diving someday, but this game really gets across the vast, terrifying void that is the ocean. And I feel like if I was just surrounded by blue in all directions, I'd probably freak out. I can barely handle seaweed touching my leg without my life flashing before my eyes. Another game that caught my eye was Idol Manager. It seems like the kind of game that I would start playing ironically, and then before I know it, I'm completely obsessed with getting Popstar's brand deals on cereal boxes. There's something about management sims that just gets me into the flow state, and next thing I know, 3 hours have passed. The game's been out on Steam for a while, so if you've played it, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And finally, the last game from the Direct that I want to mention is Another Crab's Treasure. This game was the big feature slot in the Direct and appears to be SpongeBob meets Dark Souls, which, I mean, yes please. It seems like it has a lot of action platforming influences as well, and the idea of being a hermit crab inside of a mug, fighting your way through shipwrecks and reefs just sounds magnificent. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on these games, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of the games from the Direct. Continuing on the indie game train, Stardew Valley has officially sold over 20 million copies, which is just staggering, and it's so wonderful. I feel like numbers like these really get across the impact that the indie game scene is having, and it's so nice knowing that small teams with good ideas are able to have such a giant impact on the game industry. You mean free updates and patches and valuing people's time and money can still be profitable? Wow! Incredible. This news fills me with hope for the future. I'm a big fan of Stardew Valley, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen with Stardew's successor, the Haunted Chocolatier. Now let's change our focus from indie darlings to big corporate, because it's been hard to avoid the reports of poor work conditions for staff and contractors coming out of Nintendo of America. This story has been unfolding over the last 2-ish months, and it appears that the staff, especially contractors, are having to work under poor work conditions with outdated tech and infrastructure on underwhelming salaries, which is in direct contrast to full-time Nintendo employees working only a stone's throw away, who are provided with better amenities and benefits. I feel like for me, this story really sucks because it isn't necessarily surprising. There's been a lot of controversy from big tech and game companies in recent times which cover a range of issues, and it's always deeply troubling and disappointing. I obviously don't have answers or solutions, and I'm not an expert on this topic, but I just wanted to mention it here because I think as consumers of the media that these companies produce, it's important that we're conscious and informed about these issues. But before we all get too sad about late-stage capitalism, let's move on to something that I found really interesting. Tom Crago, who is the CEO of Tantalus, the developer that worked on the Skyward Sword HD port, was interviewed on a podcast called Fragments of Silicon, in which he explained that converting the motion controls from the Wii version to the Switch version took over 1.5 years to complete and was the hardest part of the process. I just find this fascinating. It's easy to look at Skyward Sword HD without understanding the work involved and just call it a easy slap together job. But when you dig deeper and listen to the stories behind any game's development, it quickly becomes apparent that this shit is hard and I don't understand what is really involved and I'm just a greedy, naive, whiny little baby. I also found it interesting that Tom says in the interview that if they hadn't gotten the controls exactly right, then Nintendo simply wouldn't have released the game. I still haven't tried out the HD version of Skyward Sword, so if you have, I'd love to know what you thought of the control scheme in the game. It was a really interesting podcast, and Tom goes into details about porting City Skylines to Switch and much, much more. If that sounds interesting to you, I'll try to leave a link so that you can go and check it out for yourself. In terms of Switch Online news, we got Kirby 64 The Crystal Shard this month, and let me tell you, this game, oh boy, this game. I've played it before, it's pretty good. Like, it's not the best game ever, but it is a solid, fun experience. However, this is 100% a must-play if you're a fan of body horror. Look at this shit! Yes, Kirby just shot an arrow through their mouth. Yes, Kirby did just shoot assault missiles. Yes, Kirby did just rip its face off its own body and is now running around as a faceless pancake. It's incredible. The combination copy abilities give me life, and if any of that interested you, definitely check it out. Alrighty, so the last piece of news that I have is that there's currently a Kickstarter going on for Cattails Wild Woods Story. If you've never heard of Cattails, think like a simpler Stardew Valley, but you play as a cat and roam around the wilderness before settling down and having a cat family after you romance a cat partner. It's fucking awesome. It's the life we all deserve, and if you're interested, you can go and back a brand new entry in the series, so I'll link to that as well. Well, those are some things that did occur this month, so let's go ahead and jump into what did we been play. So this month I played through Metroid Zero Mission for the second time, and oh my goodness. It's such a good game. There's something about the Game Boy Advance era games that are just these short and sweet, roughly 5-hour experiences, just jammed packed with content and zero filler that is, it's just, they're so good and satisfying and you can actually finish them. And having played through Metroid Dread last year and being able to see the parallels and precursors to Dread's stealth Emmy sections with the Zero Suit Samus sections in Zero Mission, was a real, oh shit, this is so fucking cool moment for me. If you haven't played the game before, then I highly recommend it. It's a nightmare to get a copy of it. I played it on the Wii U, but I'm not gonna judge. And as always, feel free to let me know what games you've been playing this month in the comments below. But now it's time for What Pokemon Am I? I know my age, I know my blood type, I know my morals and values, I know the exact date and time of my death, but what I don't know is what flipping Pokemon I am. Which means it's quiz time. You broke a rotten egg in your room. What will you do? Okay, so if you say that you're immediately gonna run and open a window, I'm sorry, but you're lying to yourself. You are 100% gonna revert to your lizard brain and sniff that egg, and then immediately regret it. When the going gets tough, do you get going? I want to say something inspirational right now, but I think I'd probably just curl up in a ball and cry. A foreign person has started up a conversation with you. To be honest, you don't have a clue what this fellow is saying. How do you reply? You could just be speaking to me in English, and 99% of the time I have no idea what is happening. Just being like, yeah, what you just said is definitely my default go-to. Do you think you are cool? Be honest. Hell yeah, I'm cool. And you watching this, you're cool. We're all cool. Screw this negative self-image. We're all out here trying to be our best and killing it, and you are the greatest thing this world has ever seen. Okay, you appear to be the sassy type. You tend to be somewhat cynical. Despite that, there is something appealing and lovable about you. But do you occasionally say something arrogant that angers others? Do you make that mistake? Or have people called you conceited, vain, or selfish? Wow, that is not me at all. A sassy type like you should be the Pokemon Trico. Oh snap, I'm a mother flippin' Trico. And all it took to find out was some psychologically scarring insults from a video game. Which means we're moving on to viewer questions. So this month we don't have any viewer questions, but you know what that means. I get to ask you wonderful listeners a question. And that question is, if you could have any video game series turned into a movie, what would it be? For me, I think I would have to choose Metroid, because can you imagine? A Metroid movie would be so good. And don't forget that if you have any questions for me, be it serious or ridiculous, just leave it in the comments below and I'll answer it in the next monthly month. But for now, that's all from me. Thanks for hanging out, and I hope you've all had a great month and played some great games, and I'll talk to you again soon.